your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin, come along.
Welcome aboard and come on along to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Friday, July 3rd. It's got a big July 4th weekend coming up for you. Great show as always today. Alec Lasley's going to be with us. We got a lot of recruiting information to get to. And Dustin DePerick is joining us again today. Todd's out sick, so looking forward to another great day of fun times, man. Dustin, thanks a lot. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Big plans this weekend for the 4th?
And I usually do. Honestly, my family does a really big thing every year. My aunt always has basically all my mom's family over. She's got a big old Pittsburgh Catholic family, and they usually just have a big cookout and everything, obviously, but not doing that this year with everything going down. So sure, me and the wife will just figure out something to do around.
Should be a lot of things going this weekend, man. A lot of it's usually a very big sports weekend, but unfortunately not as much this weekend. But we've got NASCAR, the TBT. That doesn't start actually until the 4th, but that'll get going. But college football, I talked about this yesterday, and, man, I saw the South Carolina governor said that if their numbers continue to go up, that there's just no way he can imagine high school or college sports happening. And I think this is just becoming not that it's never not been serious, but it's becoming a serious thing as far as of us having sports this fall.
Mm.
I think we lost.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Say that again. I'm sorry.
We were talking yesterday. I was talking about how I was beginning to lose confidence that we're going to have college football this fall. And then now yesterday I see that the South Carolina governor also came out and said if their numbers continue to rise, he can't imagine high school or college sports happening. And it's becoming more and more real. I hope that is not the case, but I think people need to be prepared for this is a very real possibility.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's interesting that you are seeing governors, especially in those areas, are really appealing using football to people that to say, this is a reason to wear a mask. This is a reason to be more responsible. And that is something that they're taking seriously. I mean, I think part of the reason maybe that there is maybe this sort of, I guess, dip in concern, even as the cases are going up, it's becoming, you're seeing the median age in terms of cases drop, basically where you had a lot of older people get hit the first time around, before anybody really knew what was going on. It was infecting nursing homes, and that's what led to the big, just the huge death count early. Now you're seeing it transmit through, bars and people going out. Basically, all the older people, the at-risk people, have really kind of kept themselves inside, knowing that this is something to kill them. And it got to this point where you started to see things open up. So the younger people were like, hey, let's do this. And they let their guard down a little bit, start going to the bars and those things. And they say, okay, we need to appeal to them in a different way. Hey, this is still something, even if it doesn't kill you, it's something that could really hurt you. And hey, on top of that, if you're not worried about that, if you think you're invincible, look where this is going, have common sense. If we keep on this track, there's no way that there's football. So I think that's something, the numbers definitely don't look great, as we talked about yesterday. You're not only seeing, you're seeing climbs in places where there are college football teams that matter, and you're seeing climbs in places where there are recruits that matter, basically, and hometowns of players, Florida, Texas, California. These are places where there are a lot, where a lot of college football players grew up. So if it doesn't get better, as some of these kids start to report, you're going to see higher case totals. Again, I think we talked about it yesterday, and the idea of fans being allowed at these games, is really running away fast. It sounds really hard to imagine at this point that you can be able to put people in the stands, even with social distancing. It doesn't sound great. Now, obviously, I think you're seeing good news as far as outdoor transmission. Say maybe it might be easier in that case, but you are seeing a lot of push. But like I said, I think it matters that you see a Henry McMaster come out and say, hey, do this or we don't have football. Greg Abbott in Texas is a guy I think that actually pushed back when cities, were trying to have mask guidelines, push back against it before, and now he is the governor of Texas, is coming full force for masking. So that might help the cause. I mean, basically, you don't know if there's time, because when you start to see this wave start to crest, it's hard to say, okay, how long is it going to take before it falls back again? Even if you start being more responsible, but I think it at least is good news that you're seeing these governors that weren't necessarily on that track before are starting to take it more seriously and are using football, as the carrot, basically, to say, hey, you might have this, you might not, but you have a better chance of having football if you adhere to these guidelines.
Agree. And then, talk about change. More change continues to come. Are you originally from Pittsburgh? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Steelers, so I'm assuming you're a big Steelers fan.
Grew up that way, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Washington, the name has been a big thing of debate for quite some time, but now it looks like it is really coming to a head, of course, during this time. But Nike has pulled all the gear with the name on it. FedEx has asked for a name change, and I think they gave $250 million for the stadium rights or something like that. And the federal authorities have now asked them. I don't see any way that this does not happen. Our first question is, what are you going to call them? What are we going to call Washington?
Jeez, anything. I mean, it's been long past time. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it's one thing to name to have a team named after Indians or some Native Americans or a tribe or something like that. There's a lot of sort of back and forth you could have the racist way of Native American. So, I mean, it's wild that it's gotten this far and it's taken this much, to finally move the needle on this thing. But I think FedEx is really that's the break in the dam, because obviously they've named it, the stadium is named after FedEx. So that I think has really pushed it over the edge. So yeah, what do you call them? I mean, it could be anything. I mean, they obviously had to come up with a name out of the sky, to bring a baseball team back with the Nationals.
Which they called the Nationals, and they were so creative to call them the Nationals. So that was
that really was going out on a limb there. I mean, obviously, they've I don't shoot. It could be anything. I actually did think it was cool. Tuskegee Airmen, certainly would be a nod to, nod basically to, to Black history. And I think that certainly that's not Black history that happened in Washington, D.C. necessarily. But I thought that was cool. And as somebody showed, kind of logo markups that you could do. I mean, you don't even have to change that much. You can keep the colors. You just switch it up and use a picture of an airplane. I thought that I thought that was a good idea, but anything works better than this.
Oh, absolutely.
Bottom line. I mean, there's a handful. There's only a handful of names that would be worse than what Redskins is. So I think that would be literally anything they could look into. I think would be a step in the right direction. And
I wonder if they try to honor the Native Americans still in some way, or they just get totally away from it, and it's. Mm-hmm. It's they're going to have this gigantic name contest, which is great. But it's when you see teams that have had names for so long, it's a part of the fabric and it's part of the lexicon. But people have been getting away from this one, so this is not a hard one to break.
No, I don't think so at all. I know. I'm sure that a big part of it hasn't been done yet, and it's just blatantly obvious at its face. Slur. It was never a respectful way to refer to Native Americans. Never was. And basically, even as there's been sort of a back and forth. I mean, again, some there's a tribe. You refer to a tribe in the name. I mean, there's a lot of those things have been sort of talked through, and maybe this one's going to be okay. I think if you involve tribes, if you involve, Native Americans in general in the name to make it as respectful as possible.
As Florida State did.
That usually works out. Obviously, what's up?
It's like Florida State did. Like Florida State, they have a great relationship with the Seminole tribe. They pay homage to them, and they have a relationship with that tribe.
If you make sure that you're honoring their real traditions what they're really proud of. Caricature that goes a long way. I mean, I think,
we're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to come back.
You are going to see a change in the Indians logo at some point. Sounds good?
Yes, sir. We're going to take a quick break here and come back with more Indiana Sports Beat. Alec Lasley is going to join us a little bit. We're going to talk about some IU recruiting as well, but stay tuned. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back with more right after this.
I don't care if Monday's blue, Tuesday's gray, and Wednesday too. Thursday, I don't care about.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Ryan Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat here on this Friday, July 3rd. Coming to you, of course, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Dustin DePierre sitting in with us today. Alec Lasley joining us now from thehoosier.com. Lots of recruiting action going on this week, Alec. A lot of moving and shaking, some offers, and no visits, of course, with everything being shut down. But still a lot of things popping.
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely a fun week after the last couple of weeks with not a ton going on. But yeah, a couple offers out. Kind of taking the next step in a couple of those recruitments for James Graham in 2021 and Justice Williams in 2022. So, Obviously Justice Williams, that won't be something that will really take off for a while now, but James Graham's obviously one to continue to follow since it is 2021, and obviously a lot more pressing to kind of get some of those wings and forwards in for next year.
Yeah, but he's another that if Indiana was able to land, Dustin, that would be a very, very attractive front line Indiana would have with the names that Archie Miller is looking at.
We're talking for 2021. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously Logan, Duncombe already being in there as part of the mix is really a big deal. Alec, just talk a little bit more. What do you view as sort of priorities for them position-wise in the 2021 and 2022 class? What do you think they've got to get in this class, in these two classes position-wise?
Yeah, for 2021, it's definitely kind of that hybrid forward, stretch forward kind of position. And you can kind of see that with Trey Kaufman. Obviously, they already have Logan Duncombe, but with Trey Kaufman, Mason Miller, they obviously were going after Trey Patterson as well. And I think the James Graham offer has a lot to do with them missing out on Trey Patterson, because let's just say worst comes to worst, they miss out on both Trey Kaufman and Mason Miller. They would have absolutely no one in that front line for next year for 2021. So that's why I think kind of getting involved a little bit more with James Graham is definitely something that is really needed because that front court is something that they really have to kind of establish moving forward. For 2022, I think it's definitely the point guard position, because you look at Rob Fantasy's not going to be there. Christian Lander's most likely not going to be there. And then after that, we saw last year without really a lot of point guard depth, we saw that offense really struggle. So I think, it's really hard to say if they're going to take 2 point guards, especially in, a class that's probably going to be about 4 guys. But I wouldn't be shocked if they really kind of try to get 2 point guards out of that 2022 class.
No, that makes sense. I'd be surprised if they didn't. If they lose Lander and Finney, and then obviously Durham is going to be a senior anyway. You're running out of point guards. You're running out of guards that can handle really fast. Would you be surprised if they take somebody in 2021, even though that might tighten it up a little bit? Could they address point guard at all just because of the potential depth, especially if you were to lose Lander, if he were to be a one and done?
No, I really don't think so, just because that backcourt is already so crowded and so deep. Obviously, you do have Christian Lander, who you obviously reclassified into 2020 because he's going to play a pivotal role in not only this year, but again, most likely next year as well. And next year, he's literally going to have the full reins more than not. Obviously, Finney's still going to be there, but it's going to be more so Christian Lander's team, I believe, next year, just with that upside and the skill set that he can provide Indiana's offense.
And so, and Archie's been on very, very busy during this pandemic time, which of course this affects everybody. How much do you think that this actually impacts on whether or not they're getting the guy or they're after the people they want to be after? Because the technology today has pretty much eliminated the need to be there in person, but it's just that personal touch. But I don't know that it's really having that much of an impact, other than maybe pushing a few commitments sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think the big thing is just maybe the adjustment on commitments and the timelines for some of these players. I don't really think, you see coaches really reaching for any prospects or for any targets that they may normally not reach for. Because, if you look at Indiana's kind of target board for, both of these classes, none of those guys are really, any names that normally wouldn't be there for a program like Indiana. So I think it just really impacts the timeline when these guys really want to decide. And obviously, I'm sure there's some schools that are pushing for some of these players to recruit or for some of these players to actually commit a little bit earlier. But outside of that, I really don't think it has much of an impact on, trying to reach for a target here or there.
Did go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how much do you think we're now far enough along that there's not going to be a summer evaluation period? What sort of total effect are you seeing there? Just the fact that there hasn't, there's no spring, the July period is not going to happen. What do you think the total effect of that has been, nationwide and on Indiana in particular?
Yeah, nationwide, obviously, if players aren't really able to go visit where they're probably going to spend, the next 2 to 4 years of their lives and, develop their career and try to make it to the next level, whatever that may be academically or obviously playing basketball. That's obviously a major hurt and downfall for those players. Indiana, I don't really know necessarily that it hurts them too bad, just because I think the core group that Archie Miller really developed the relationships with was already so strong that I think if anything, it does benefit them in the long run. When trying to obviously land someone like a Trey Kaufman or even a Aminu Muhammad, just someone who was already on campus, not officially but unofficially, back in January. And I think just some of those relationships just already had taken that next step that a lot of these other programs are trying to kind of catch up on that, maybe won't be able to.
Yeah, we saw Indiana go through a very, very long courtship with Romeo Langford. People were very concerned about the length of that recruiting. It's very, very similar to Trey Kaufman, who they're only for about 20 minutes apart from where they're each from down there. But Trey Kaufman is just one of those kids. He's a unit. He's a throwback. He doesn't care to be rushed. He doesn't care to bask in the limelight. He's serious about his education. He's a very, very smart kid. His major is what he's very concerned about, and he's not going to be rushed by anybody. But he's fortunate he doesn't have to be.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you obviously hit it there. He's very smart, just obviously beyond the game of basketball, and just life in general. He's a very, very smart guy, and he goes at making decisions a lot more analytically than a lot other, high schoolers these days, which is definitely good to see. But yeah, I mean, I think obviously that relationship that him and Archie Miller and even just the whole Indiana staff in general kind of developed early on in his recruitment will not only benefit Indiana, with his recruitment, but I think you're starting to see that with some of these other targets and other recruits that say how much of that relationship, plays into their recruitment and how much of a different role kind of this Indiana staff over the past couple of years is kind of going about it than maybe the former staff.
And Dustin, we usually have an iubb all summer long for these guys to be seen. Mm-hmm. Now, those guys on that bottom half, they're not getting those views. How are they getting seen or getting their name out there right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hardest thing about all this. Obviously, you have the 5 stars and even the 4 stars who, yes, are being hurt by it, but at this point, they already have those core group of schools that they pretty much know, roughly where they're going to end up. But for some of these guys that either aren't ranked or even James Graham is a good example of it, even though he has dozens of offers to high major programs. He's a guy who's just a 3-star right now in the Rivals rankings. And quite honestly, if there was a summer evaluation period or even more of a late spring evaluation period where he was able to be seen a little bit more, I think he's definitely a 4-star, kind of pushing that right around in the 75 to 50 range, which, maybe 1 or 2 other big time programs jump in and steal him away from some of these other programs who have been involved a little bit longer. So, I mean, it's really tough for some of these other guys, but, I think you're just going to see kind of more of that mid-major talent or non-Power 5 talent end up doing a lot better in the next year or two, just because they get some kids that normally would be maybe the 5th or 6th player on one of these high major, Power 5 programs.
You mean like basketball in the old days, Dustin?
Yeah, I know a little bit. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how this shakes out. You mentioned Graham a couple times. I guess tell us a little bit more about him. What tells you that he kind of belongs in that track? What do you like about his game, and how do you think if Indiana were to eventually land him, how do you think he would fit?
Yeah, I mean he kind of fits along that same kind of hybrid role that they're looking for right now, which I think, like I said, really shows you why they offered him, because they did miss out on Trey Patterson. He's definitely more of a post player than he is a true perimeter guy, but he definitely has perimeter skills. He's a very good shooter. He shot 44% from 3 last year. So I think that's definitely something that, would be beneficial. Obviously, we know the downfall that Indiana's had over the last couple of years shooting the 3, especially in the front court and having kind of that hybrid forward who can stretch out and create a little bit more room for, obviously Trace Jackson Davis or just even any of these other guards to have more room to penetrate in the middle. So he definitely fits in with what Indiana's trying to do and kind of the move that Indiana's trying to make offensively.
And is it just me? I'm not going by rumors and this or that, Dustin, but I feel like Indiana is actually in possibly the best position recruiting wise that they have been in Archie's 3 years. I don't know that they're going to land these guys, all of them, but the feeling with them is much deeper, much better than it has been, I think, since he's been here.
I mean, it seems to me, I want to get Alex's take on this too. I mean, it seems to me the momentum is better. It does seem to me that getting Christian was a big deal. Christian Lander, I think, was sort of a turning point because, you had the rest of that 2020 class was okay. I mean, they got a couple in-state guys that they should get, and a nice little sort of under the radar guy in Jordan Geronimo. But basically, you had seen obviously the blue chip guys in Langford and Trace Jackson Davis commit. Before you have kind of a disappointing season in 18-19, it seemed like he lost a good bit of momentum. But getting Lander, and I think like at the end of a season where they should have made the tournament if there had been one, seemed like it picked some momentum up, and it seems like it's carrying it. You're starting to see it carry a little bit forward. It seems like that was sort of a sign that they're in better shape and it's improving. Alec, do you see the same thing basically? I mean, do you see some level of recruiting momentum on the trail for them? Again, obviously, the pandemic has hit everybody, and no one feels like they have real momentum. But I mean, are you seeing their sort of stock improve? Going off the Lander commitment, going off of, again, a team that would have made the tournament. Do you feel like they've kind of sort of turned the fortunes around out there?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, obviously, you look at the past couple of classes, and I don't think Indiana was as involved with top 50 guys and top 75 guys as they are now. And obviously building that depth, not only obviously on your roster, but in the recruiting world, and having maybe 3 or 4 5 stars that you're after, and a couple 4 stars after that is crucial, because obviously you're not going to land every single one, and you're probably not going to land 2 of those 5 stars, unless you're a Duke or a Kentucky for the most part. But if you're in the race with 3 or 4 of those guys, more often than not, you're going to land at least one of them. And if you land at least 1 5-star, that probably means you're going to land at least 1 4-star or 2 4 stars. And it's just a trickle-down effect. And you're getting just a lot more 4 stars. And, I hate to always talk about the 4 or 5 stars compared to 3 stars, because at the end of the day, they still have to obviously come to college and perform. But, there's a reason why they are 4 and 5 stars, because they do have just more of that talent level. But yeah, Indiana is definitely doing a great job with just being there and being that name again that these guys really look at and take a long, hard look at.
Well, they looked more like a team last year. And to me, 2 of the guys that have led that parade is Trace Jackson Davis and Armand Franklin. Their relationship, I think their relationship really comes across, and I think it's made a difference. Dustin, you were going to say something. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Yeah, no. Well, I want to go back to that was an interesting point I wanted to go back to, but beyond just having some level of momentum from winning, Alec, you seeing them behave different on the recruiting trail? And again, like, I know you're not necessarily watching it. No one's out in gyms seeing who they look at and how much time they spend on it. We usually can do that, during this time. But I mean, are you seeing them operate? Have you seen them change the way they operate in recruiting? Are they any more? I don't want to say locked in. Are they calling more people? I mean, what are you like? What, if any, difference in the way they approach recruiting are you seeing right now than you have before?
Yeah, and it's not so much that they're just calling more people and getting more involved. It's just the style that they're going about it. It's the way that they're connecting with some of these players, and I think. Now, obviously, Archie Miller's been there a couple of years now. He has a little bit to go on. He has a little bit more to his resume. He has some of these guys now that he's brought in. And you can see the development that, again, not only they're making as players, but as people in the group that's around the team and representing the university, I think is just a lot better. And obviously a place that not only kids are going to want to go to, but the parents are going to feel comfortable sending their kids to. And I think just that message in the style that Archie Miller and the whole entire staff is really communicating with is crucial, and I think you're starting to see that pay off.
Would you say today's team roster is actually also recruiting harder than maybe a couple of years past as well, and that pays great dividends?
Yeah, definitely, because they're not only locked into the roster as is now, but they're locked into the program in general, and I think that's crucial. When trying to obviously build a program down the line.
What's next? Anything? There's no commitments, I think, on the horizon that we're expecting. So, and it's kind of a quiet period. I know there was some basketball last week in Indiana Elite, played some games, but not a lot going on. What's next in the world of college basketball?
Yeah, no, we're just taking probably a little bit more of a deeper dive into some of these 2022 guys, kind of getting them out there, building a little bit more of that brand for some of those guys, and see how they could possibly, fit in with the Indiana program. Obviously 2022 is still a while away, but I think maybe some of those guys end up committing a little bit earlier to any program than maybe they would prior time. So, I think that's just something to kind of keep an eye out for. And obviously some of these 2021 guys, I think, may end up waiting a little bit longer than usual.
Why is that? Why do you think they're waiting? I know they can't go visit, and everybody wants to go visit. Are they hoping to get to take that visit? Because I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think they're definitely waiting to take those visits. Some of the guys that I've talked to in 2021, even some of the guys who maybe aren't right on the top of a program's radar, they still want to visit, because, like I said earlier, this is a very important decision for them. And honestly, if most of the class is going to end up waiting a little bit longer, it does them no harm at the current moment, just to wait and see maybe if September comes around and you're able to get on campus for a visit, and maybe they don't take all 5 of their senior year officials or junior year officials or anything like that, and they take maybe only 1 or 2, and it maybe just reaffirms, hey, this is the program that I knew I wanted to go to, and now obviously because I was able to visit, it definitely is the right choice for me.
It's the hardest thing in the world for a kid to do, Dustin. Wait. Alec, I appreciate you, man, as always.
Not somebody who
make sure you give him a follow on Twitter at Al Asley. Keep up. You're doing a great job at thehoosier.com. We appreciate you as always, man. Have a great 4th of July weekend. You got big plans?
Just hanging out by the pool, by the lake. Hopefully the weather stays perfect like it has been, and we'll enjoy the day.
Do so, brother. I hope you have a great one. We appreciate you.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Alec Lasley, joining us here on the Indiana Sports Beat, talking some recruiting, as there's lots going on and a lot of action. We talked about, Dustin, that roster it's getting more and more formidable. It's what I think people were expecting day one when Archie got here, and even though it's Indiana and he had some success at Dayton, it didn't matter. That you still got to have that oomph behind you, and he's starting to have more heft in his recruiting.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's taken some time because obviously he wasn't in position that he could do a full roster overhaul at the time. So he's kind of had a slower build. He hasn't and he took some tough breaks really with his one bigger class. I mean, maybe not even tough breaks, but you obviously have a situation where, Demezy's already gone, Jake Forrester's already gone, Romeo Langford you knew was going to be a one and done. And Jerome Hunter out of that certainly had to miss his entire first year with his leg injury. So he hasn't been able to, it's taken a while for some of this to really come together, but yeah, you're right. Some of these guys are starting to show what they can be. And now you're bringing in, a pretty good-looking class in this group that addresses a lot of issues, bringing in the wings and Leo and Galloway and Geronimo, and then obviously bringing a big-time point guard with Lander. So you're starting to see, some progress towards what I'm sure he wants to be. It's just the last couple of years, especially with the lack of shooting, when it's come to forwards, you just had this team that's very limited, and I don't know. I can't say, okay, what sort of analog there is for his previous teams at Dayton, but certainly there was just not a lot of offensive diversity when it came to the forwards. You just had some bigger guys that were more or less locked into the paint. You had to operate in the paint, and you've had this just clogged up offense. You're just always seeing 3 guys defending the paint the last couple of years. So that you're starting to see some movement there. Toward a team that's more modern, so that really goes a long way. And I think it was a good point that you mentioned that some of these guys are really close, and that does help, on the recruiting trail, and it helps on the floor as well. As just these guys like each other. That is one thing that really helps. I think, there's not necessarily sort of matured level of chemistry yet that you saw basically back in 2011, 12, and 12, 13 when those guys have really been together through some messy times and then really build a really tighter bond. It's not really at that level. These guys are just starting to get to know each other, but it matters that they like each other. It matters that they are able to go on Twitter and push Indiana and say, this is, you really want to be here. This is a place that you want to be. This is a place that's enjoyable to be in. It's a program that everybody wants to play for, because that comes through. I mean, kids notice that, I think, that, on social media and stuff like that, especially, at a time now where it seems like everybody's being a lot more honest about how things are really going and being willing to call coaches out. If even in that environment, you still got guys that are saying, hey, Indiana is the place where you want to go. I think that makes a difference to kids. That certainly, that shows, hey, this is, this place is the real deal. This is a place I want to be. These are guys I want to play with. This is the coaching staff I want to play for. So all of that is trending in the right direction, I think, for Indiana. It's not moving super fast, but it is moving the right way.
I agree. And Trace Jackson-Davis is going to be a great leader at a young age. We can see that already. We got more coming up. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat. We're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Friday, July 3rd. We're back with more right after this.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Friday. It's July 3rd. Hope everyone have some great plans lined up for the weekend. Hope the weather is great wherever you are. Some racing action this weekend in Indianapolis at the Brickyard, 400 going off, but also a doubleheader, having an Indy race there as well. So that's going to be kind of a cool deal. But also Formula One racing is going on in Austria, I believe, but it's the first time that all three, NASCAR, IndyCar, and Formula One, will race on the same weekend this year. So I guess that's some movement forward, I guess, if you're a race fan. But anything really, I'll be honest, Dustin. I do watch NASCAR a lot, but when it's been on, it has been like the only thing. When they were having like 7 races in 20 days, I'm like, and there was nothing else on but Korean baseball. I'm like, give it to me. But I don't know if they've been able to pick up more fans because of that. They've also had some trials through what they've gone through the last couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm everything is picking up any kind of live golf events. It really picked up. It's 4 months sports desert here. Just as everything starts to matter. And yeah, like as you mentioned, that there was the entire sort of Bubba Wallace narrative. Obviously led to some higher ratings. That's a long story that to get into all of that. Certainly that certainly drove, I think, some viewership. But it's going to be everything. I mean, I think the TBT tournament is going to really draw a lot of eyes. It really will. That wouldn't ordinarily make a point to watch a tournament like that. I think a lot of people will, and I think it's also going to be something that's going to be viewed as kind of a test run for what the NBA is going to do. So I think that is going to be something that I think has more attention. But literally anything, NASCAR, if you get tennis events, anything that is able to start earlier, again, I'm sure American ratings of European soccer are going up, which they have been as is. I mean, there's obviously certainly been more of a trend of people caring in the United States, but I imagine there are probably more people that hadn't been on that bandwagon already that have jumped onto it just because it's something. So I think all of that. So it certainly puts NASCAR and all the racing circuits in a place where they have a chance to take advantage of the fact that there's just not much else to watch.
I saw Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M in a little bit of hot water, some violations that actually ended up giving Jimbo Fisher a 6-month show cause along with that.
It was a 6-month show cause. That's wild.
It was a weird thing. It was very weird. I'm like, he has a job, so it's like.
Yeah, right. They're not firing him, but they're giving him a 6-month show cause. But there was some pretty serious. If I'm not mistaken, there's pretty serious allegations. I know, guys that are on different staffs. Jay Graham is a guy that's at Tennessee. A former running back there, an NFL running back. I know he's busted up over it as well. I think he's not allowed to recruit. So they that really they got hit for a bunch of stuff. I don't know if it was paying players or what all it was, but all kinds of violations.
Boy, we got to get your band.
And they're looking for in the SEC West last year. Silly, but they really got hurt. Basically, it doesn't look good for A&M that they cheated and they paid the coach a whole ton of money. Still didn't win a bunch of games.
Yeah, the TBT quarantine is under operation right now. We've talked to a couple of the guys. Dustin, Remy Abel was on with us. Mo Creek's been on with us. Those games are set to get underway, and I guess tomorrow. That starts tomorrow. So that's going to be kind of that's something to look forward to, definitely, because that's something I always look forward to. It's a fun event. It's become really summer watch TV, and I've been trying to, the guys that's been on, I've been trying to get them to say, you guys got to get an IU alumni team together, and they'd all like to do that. It's not that easy.
No, it's not. I mean, I think it's funny to watch it, even to watch the tournament get broadcast. It reminds me of a men's league I used to cover, when I was younger. One of the first things I did when I was a high school kid is I covered this men's league in my town. And I mean, they miss things for real life events. I mean, in normal years, you have guys who are like, he's not going to be here this week. he's got a wedding. Kid's got a thing, and it's kind of like the same stuff is reason why you might not have a whole team. It's just these other life events, but certainly you never have for the college season or professional seasons. But you remember they're just guys. For a lot, some of them are professionals in something other than sports at this point. Like I know Ryan Klein was supposed to play for the men of Mackey. He's not. I don't think he's going to. But he's not playing basketball professionally. There's a lot of these guys that aren't playing basketball professionally. They're just doing it. They're playing in men's leagues, or they're just staying in shape or whatever. And they get a call from, their old buddies and say, hey, you want to come out and play for a couple weeks, and play for a whole bunch of money for a one-shot deal. It's not easy to keep them together. Again, you have situations where, guys might play in Europe all year and decide, hey man, I don't want to do this. I got a family, I have I got people I need to be around, becomes an issue. But the guys that do come around is fun to see because it's real. I mean, they're not forced to be there. There's not, they're not getting a paycheck just to be there. They got to win something. And they're doing it, for fun. It's a reason that, you can tell who's really friends basically in that point. When you see these teams come together, who really had good chemistry. If these guys still want to play together years later, coach isn't making them. They don't have to be there for their scholarship. They just decide that they want to go wherever this tournament is going to be and play. So it is really a cool thing to watch. It's more mature guys. Again, it's not guys that are paying, for a big paycheck. They're just doing it because they want to do it. It's a reason, to get together with the guys again and play some ball.
Yeah, I saw it may have been the Ohio State team. I can't remember for certain, but they've lost two guys that both had NBA experience. And so there's a lot of guys in this thing that have NBA experience. It may be a 1 year or it may be 18 years ago, but it's kind of a unique deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it is really a cool thing. Like I said, you could be guys who have played in the NBA. A lot of these guys are European pros, or I don't know if you could play if you're in the G League or what. I can't remember if that's reminded or not. But yeah, some of these guys have had some NBA experience. Some of these guys haven't. But what's cool is you've heard of a lot of them, even if it isn't guys that are. It might be guys that you need to sort of remember, like I know William Buford is playing for the Ohio State team. I remember how good William Buford was. I mean, he was terrific. I can't remember what all, if he played in the league or just, how long. I just remember I just loved how he could make shots. They get like guys like Aaron Kraft usually play. And it's like a lot of guys that you can remember as being studs in the Big Ten or guys that matter. All Big Ten level players, all conference level players, might not have caught on at the NBA, maybe don't have that just raw athleticism that it takes to, function and be successful in that league. But they can play, but they're fun to watch. And you get an idea maybe what they've been doing in Europe or, again, what they've been up to if they just decided not to play, if they decided not to go forward at a certain point with their, careers. You just sort of see what they're up to and see how they are staying in shape, even if it's not by playing professional basketball. There's just a lot of cool things to watch. And it ends up being still a pretty good quality of basketball. About guys who were, in most cases, big time players, and it's interesting to see. I think who they end up picking up when it's mostly guys from college, but they got to fill some roster spots because they got connections with Greg Gary down. He coached them, so they can call him up and say, "Hey, a guy that we today."
Got a text in from Tim talking about realigning Big Ten football. I know that's a conversation that comes up every year. But
for you, last couple years don't have anything to do. It's really cool that they kind of piece these teams together on their own. I'm sorry. I think that's.
We're going to have to take a break, I think, because I think we've lost your signal,
guys.
Mike. Yeah, I think we've lost your signal. So. We'll try to get him back here in a second. But, Tim hit the text line and was asking about realignment of Big Ten football. That's something that definitely is needed, but I don't see that coming anytime soon.
Am I back? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, there you go. We got Dustin back there. Sorry, we lost him there.
Okay, cool. As far as just the divisions, is that kind of what he's talking about?
Yeah.
As far as changing divisions?
Right. Big Ten East.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for Indiana. It's a tough place to be. I'd just be surprised because everything else they've tried hasn't worked. And there still seems to be just some level of it makes some level of sense, but obviously at this stage, you're seeing a big difference in terms of having Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State in the same place makes it tough for everybody who else is going to be there. And it makes it a lot easier in the Big Ten West to not have those guys. I mean, I suppose it's conceivable for them to look at it, maybe switch a team or two to flip it over there to make it easier on the other side. But certainly you want Michigan and Ohio State to be together, and you want Penn State and Ohio State to be together. So I think it's hard to imagine separating those teams in the same way. And that's what's driving the train, basically. And I think it's important for them to keep rivalries together when they can. So having all those three in the same league, keeps all those games, keeps getting played. They're just, big banner games for everybody. Having those three on one side is what changes the competitive balance. I mean, basically, if you're not going to move at least one of those over to the West, it doesn't really matter what you do. I don't think other than that. I mean, that's kind of the big important point is what do you do with those three? And does it make sense to separate them? And I just don't know if it does, especially geographically, certainly at this point going into this year, when I think everything geographically is going to be more closely watched, and you could see a 1 year realignment for college football nationally, just to create a functional season if you have to. So I'd be really surprised to see anything that's already geographically based. For teams to be close together, I'd be really surprised to see any of that change this year.
I agree with you. And one last point to bring up of how we watch sports, because I've been using YouTube TV. Man, they are raising the prices 30%, and it's a bit all over. Everybody's talking about this, and it's like, all right, what's the other option? Because I've been very happy with it. There are a lot of sports channels on there. You get the Big Ten Network, all this Fox Sports and NBC and all that stuff. So I get everything sports-wise. Have been very, very happy. Not happy about a 30% increase with adding channels that I don't give a crap about. So texters, if you got a better option out there, let me know what it is, because I am not happy. I know Hulu and all that stuff, but man, I was really happy with YouTube TV. I take it with me everywhere I go on my phone. It's pretty handy, but so it's a little disappointing way to start the holiday weekend, but other than that, everything's great.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the bottom line is they're going to find a way to get you. I mean, if they can get you to pay enough for it, they will. If you're getting by cheap, they're probably going to get you. I mean, I've generally been on cable as long as, wherever I've been, because it just ends up being simpler, even if it ends up being a little bit more expensive. And it just seems like eventually if you get all the streaming services together, they're going to get you. Somehow that, you're going to end up paying the same amount of money. I loved YouTube TV too. When I was doing my year crashing on Mike Miller's couch, that's what he got. And so I was already paying because I was paying for my own cable back in Pittsburgh. My wife was still living. So I was just, I was sort of at the mercy of whatever Mike was willing to pay for. And YouTube TV was great. I mean, they had everything. It wasn't like you were missing anything. There wasn't any channels that weren't there, which was key, for me, is keeping up with Purdue and Butler and Indiana at the same time. I could always track on that. But you knew it was too good to be true. It was too well taken together. And ultimately, to get all those channels, you have to pay for all those channels as a company. So you're going to pass that on to the consumer. So eventually they're going to get you. Eventually they're going to have to charge you money if they're going to keep all of those stations and all of those channels. However they're going to do it, even by streaming, it's still expensive to maintain that, cooperation basically, and to continue to get that channel. And certainly if a channel is going to cable and it's getting a certain amount of money from going to cable, it's going to still ask the same amount of money to be on a streaming service. Ultimately they're going to have to get taken care of. So they're going to get you either way. And so just YouTube being as cheap as it was, it wasn't going to last forever. They were going to eventually spike that and make it closer to in line with what you have to pay for cable channels.
I cannot disagree with you, unfortunately, but I'd like to thank everybody. Thank you, first of all, for joining us the last couple of days, sitting in with us. We really appreciate it. It's been fun. Appreciate it having on. I hope what big plans for the July 4th holidays. I know we mentioned that a little bit ago.
Yeah, just whatever we can. Basically, like I said, usually it's a big family weekend for me. Always have a big cookout back in Pittsburgh, but not this weekend. Obviously, family had to cancel that one. So just, trying to take in as much as we can. Hopefully somebody's throwing up fireworks. It seems like somebody is every night for whatever reason anymore. It's just, I don't know what that is. I think it seems like it's a nationwide phenomenon. Everybody's been, literally putting up fireworks all month. So I imagine I'll find a way to see some over the weekend.
Well, that sounds good. Jimmy, how about you? I hope you have a great weekend as well. You got big plans?
Just hanging out, doing stuff, going to my friend's pool, and I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a good weekend. I'm excited.
Well, good for you, buddy. I hope everybody has a very happy but very safe July 4th weekend, and go out, do something nice, say something nice for somebody, but let's social distance as well and keep safe out there, everybody. We appreciate everybody. Thanks a lot to Dustin and to Alec for joining us on the program again today. Until Monday, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.